My name is Thea Westbrook. I'm 28 years old. Last Tuesday, I sat inside a lawyer's office and watched my entire family celebrate millions of dollars from my grandfather's will while I held a yellow envelope with nothing inside except a phone number. My sister laughed so hard she grabbed my mother's arm. My uncle lifted his coffee cup like he was making a toast. And the lawyer? He just watched me quietly, like he already knew opening that envelope would change everything. Everyone in that room had already spent their inheritance in their heads. And me? I was the joke. The college dropout. The girl who sold chairs for a living. The disappointment. But none of them knew what would happen when I picked up the phone and called the number. Before I tell you the rest, if you enjoy stories like this, take a second to like and subscribe. And tell me where you're listening from. Now let me take you back to the morning before the will reading. The phone rang at 6:14 a.m. I know because I was already awake, tying my boots before my early shift at Birch & Stone, the furniture store I managed in Holden. It was my mother. Diane Westbrook never called before 9 unless someone had died or she needed something. This time it was both. Your grandfather passed away last night, she said. No emotion. No pause. The lawyer is reading the will tomorrow at 2. Harmon and Pace in Newark. Dress presentable. Then she hung up. I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, staring at the wall. Outside, trucks rolled down Route 16. Grandpa Harold was 82 years old. He built Westbrook Properties from a tiny duplex renovation into one of the biggest real estate companies in Central Ohio. To everyone else, he was a businessman. To me, he was the man who kept sawdust in his shirt pockets. Every Sunday, I sat with him in his workshop while he taught me how to sand wood until it felt smooth as water. I drove to his house in Granville later that morning. My sister Nora's Lexus was already parked crooked near the porch. Inside, she paced through the kitchen while talking loudly on her phone. Uncle Victor stood outside with bourbon in his hand even though it wasn't even 9 in the morning. Finally, I heard him whisper to his wife. It's time. My mother opened the front door before I could knock. She looked me up and down. I already talked to the attorney, she said quietly. Your grandfather is leaving everything to the people who earned it. Then she walked away. I already knew what she meant. 4 months earlier, at Thanksgiving, everyone sat around Grandpa Harold's dining table. My mother loved making people compare themselves. She went around the table asking everyone to share their biggest success. Nora closed her second funding round for PropLink, my mother said proudly. Everyone clapped. Then Uncle Victor talked about new developments and business strategy. When it got to me, my mother smiled that sharp little smile she used before embarrassing someone. And Thea, she said, still works at that tiny furniture place. Selling chairs. People laughed. Not loudly. The quiet kind of laugh that hurts worse. I stared at my plate. Then Grandpa Harold tapped his glass. Thea manages that entire store, he said calmly. Inventory, staffing, accounts. That's responsibility. My mother waved him off. Dad, don't baby her. Later that night, I found Grandpa in the workshop. He sat on a stool, rubbing his thumb across a piece of walnut. Don't ever believe a diploma tells people who you are, he said. Then he looked at me for a long time. I've taken care of things, Thea. I didn't ask what he meant. I wish I had. The next day, I wore the only blazer I owned and drove to the lawyer's office. The parking lot looked like a luxury car show. Nora stepped out of her Lexus in a perfect black dress. Uncle Victor arrived in his Cadillac Escalade. My mother came in an Uber, though she still acted like she was wealthy. Inside the waiting area, Nora whispered to Victor. $4 million at least, she said. Plus the company. Victor nodded. That's the real prize. Then Nora noticed me. Oh, she said. You came. I didn't answer. I'm sure Grandpa left you something, she added with a fake smile. Maybe a nice card. The lawyer, Roger Harmon, finally called us into the conference room. The room smelled like old paper and leather. Roger opened the will. Uncle Victor got the vacation house by Lake Erie and $800,000. My mother got a Columbus apartment and $600,000. Nora and her husband Grant received $500,000 plus Grandpa's investment portfolio. The younger cousins got trust funds. Then Roger looked at the last page. And to Thea Marie Westbrook. Everyone turned toward me. Roger slid a yellow envelope across the table. My name was written in Grandpa Harold's handwriting. I opened it slowly. Inside was one sheet of paper. A phone number. And one sentence. Call when you're ready. HW. That was it. The silence lasted about 3 seconds. Then Nora burst out laughing. Maybe it's a homeless shelter, she said. My mother laughed too. Soon the whole room joined in. Only Roger Harmon stayed quiet. Outside in the parking lot, my mother walked over to me. You see, she said softly. He knew you couldn't handle real money. Uncle Victor stepped beside her. If that envelope has anything to do with the company, he warned, it goes through me. Then my phone buzzed. The family group chat. Nora had already sent a message. Thea got an envelope. Grandpa's final joke. 3 laughing emojis followed. I sat in my car and stared at the envelope. My hand shook. Not from fear. From pain. The kind that comes when the people who are supposed to love you prove they never really saw you. Then I dialed the number. A man answered after the 3rd ring. Hello, he said calmly. I've been expecting your call. I gripped the steering wheel. Who is this? My name is Raymond Alcott. Your grandfather appointed me 20 years ago. I frowned. I don't understand. We need to meet in person, Miss Westbrook. The next morning, I drove to Columbus. Raymond Alcott's office sat inside an old limestone building. Nothing fancy. Inside, the office was neat and quiet. A framed photo hung behind his desk. Grandpa Harold stood beside a younger Raymond in front of a half-built duplex. That was 1993, Raymond explained. First project we worked on together. Then he opened a leather folder. In 2005, your grandfather created an irrevocable trust, he said. I blinked. The trust owns 100% of Westbrook properties. I stared at him. How much is that worth? Approximately $38 million. The room went silent. I didn't even know how to react. Why me? I whispered. Raymond took off his glasses. Your grandfather told me something the day he created this trust. He leaned forward. The one who comes when I fall, not because of what I can give them, but because I fell. That's the one I trust with what I built. My throat tightened. Raymond kept talking. When your grandfather had his stroke, everyone else stayed busy. You showed up every morning. Memories hit me hard. I was 19. Grandpa needed physical therapy after his stroke. My mother said he had nurses. Victor said he was too busy. Nora barely came home. I dropped out of college and drove 40 minutes every day to help him recover. I sorted his medication. Helped him walk. Read newspapers to him. By the time he got better, my scholarship was gone. Nobody helped me return to school. My mother told everyone I just wasn't smart enough for college. Now I finally understood. Grandpa never forgot. There's another condition, Raymond said. If you never called the number, the entire trust would have gone to charity permanently. I stared at him. So if I ignored the envelope, everything would have disappeared. I lowered my head. For the first time since Grandpa died, I cried. Not because of the money. Because he believed in me. That night, my family held a so-called memorial dinner at Grandpa's house. Really, it was just people dividing up his life. Uncle Victor sat in Grandpa's chair at the head of the table. "I'll take over operations at the company," he announced. Nobody argued. Nora talked about using her inheritance for PropLink. Grant ran financial numbers on his laptop during dinner. Then my mother smiled at me. "Thea," she said sweetly, "why don't you show everyone your envelope?" A few cousins laughed. Victor leaned back. Any trust Dad created probably expired when he died anyway. I knew he was wrong. But I stayed quiet. That night, after I got home, the family group chat exploded. Nora wrote, "Any trust can be challenged. Grandpa had a stroke. We can prove diminished mental capacity." Victor replied, "The company belongs to the family." I stared at the messages in the dark. The next morning, I returned to Raymond's office. He introduced me to Maggie Donnelly over video call. Short silver hair. Sharp eyes. No nonsense. "She's been acting CEO while Harold's health declined," Raymond explained. Maggie studied me carefully. "I don't care if you have a business degree," she said. "I care if you're honest." Then she told me something else. Victor submitted over $200,000 in fake expense reports during the last 6 months. I stared at the screen. "That's one reason Harold never trusted him with the company," she added. After the call ended, Raymond slid papers across the desk. "You have 30 days to accept the trust." I looked at the signature line. $38 million. A company. 43 employees. Responsibility. "I need time," I whispered. Raymond smiled slightly. "That's exactly what Harold expected you to say." On the drive home, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. My mother called first. "If that envelope involves money," she warned, "you owe this family answers." "I don't owe anyone anything," I replied. Then Nora texted. "If you're hiding something, court will destroy you." Victor called after that. His voice sounded fake warm. "We're family, sweetheart. Let me help you manage whatever Dad left." I hung up. That night, my mother called a family meeting at Grandpa's house. The living room was packed. Victor stood near the fireplace like he already owned everything. "We need interim leadership at Westbrook Properties," he announced. Nora supported him immediately. Then Victor looked at me. "If Harold gave you anything connected to the company, it belongs to this family." Nora stood next. "Thea sells chairs in a tiny town," she said coldly. "She isn't qualified to run anything." People nodded. My mother gave the final blow. "I don't want to hurt you," she said softly, "but you've never been ready." The room stayed silent. I stood slowly. "I'll be speaking with my attorney," I said. That changed everything. Victor's face tightened. The next morning, I signed the papers. Every single one. The trust officially became mine. Then Raymond handed me another envelope. Grandpa's final letter. I opened it carefully. "Thea," it began. "I watched this family for many years. I know who builds and who burns through. You came when I fell. Everyone else came for holidays. You came in January. I'm not leaving you money. I'm leaving you responsibility. Take care of what I built. And take care of yourself first. Harold." I held the letter in both hands. The paper smelled faintly like his workshop. Raymond cleared his throat. "We should formally notify the family." "Saturday," I said. "At exactly 2 o'clock. At Grandpa's house." Saturday arrived. The living room was full. Victor sat in Grandpa's armchair. Nora and Grant sat on the couch. My mother waited near the window. Everyone thought I was coming to surrender. At 2 sharp, I walked in. Raymond entered behind me carrying a leather briefcase. Victor frowned. "Who's this?" "My attorney," I answered. The room instantly changed. Raymond sat down calmly. Then he spoke. In 2005, Harold Westbrook created an irrevocable trust. Nobody moved. The trust owns 100% of Westbrook properties. Current estimated value, $38 million. Nora's face lost all color. My mother gripped the chair. Victor stared at Raymond. The sole beneficiary, Raymond continued, is Thea Marie Westbrook. The room exploded. This is fraud, Victor shouted. Raymond calmly placed 3 folders on the table. Your father completed mental evaluations in 2005, 2015, and 2023. All confirmed full mental capacity. Victor didn't touch the papers. Nora stood up too fast and hit the coffee table. She gets everything, she snapped. She didn't even finish college. The trust is legally separate from the will, Raymond explained. Harold was very clear. Then my mother turned toward me. You won't do this to your own family. I looked straight at her. You told me Grandpa gave me that envelope because I couldn't handle real money. She said nothing. You called me your disappointment in front of everyone. The room became painfully quiet. Grant finally spoke. We should leave. No, Nora snapped. We fight this. Grant shook his head. The trust is airtight. If we challenge it, the no contest clause freezes everyone's inheritance. Nora grabbed her purse and stormed out. Victor followed slowly. My mother stayed seated, staring at the carpet. Eventually, she left too. Only Aunt Lillian remained. She gently touched my arm. I always wondered why Harold kept the workshop open, she whispered. Then she smiled sadly. Now I know someone still visited him. Monday morning, I walked into Westbrook Properties for the first time as owner. The building wasn't flashy. Grandpa hated flashy. Maggie met me at the front entrance. I'm not going to baby you, she warned. But I won't let you drown either. She spent hours explaining the company. Projects. Budgets. Contracts. Employees. Then she showed me something else. Victor had hired 3 family members into fake jobs. One of them was his son Tyler. He hasn't visited a project site in 11 months, Maggie explained. What would Harold do? I asked. Performance reviews. Then termination if they fail. I nodded. Do it. That afternoon, I signed 2 major contracts. I was terrified. But I showed up. That's what Grandpa taught me. A few days later, Victor called. You fired my son? He demanded. He's on performance review, I corrected. You're threatening family. No. I'm enforcing standards. Then I reminded him that contesting the trust would freeze his inheritance. He hung up. Later that week, Nora called. For the first time in her life, she sounded broken. PropLink is failing, she admitted quietly. Grant wants a divorce if the company collapses. We met for coffee the next morning. She looked exhausted. I know what I said about you, she admitted. I meant it back then. I was wrong. I took a slow sip of coffee. I'm not giving you money, I told her. Her jaw tightened. But Westbrook Properties needs a property management system. If your software is good enough, pitch it properly. She blinked. You'd let me compete? I'll let you earn it. For the first time in years, Nora looked at me differently. Not with pity. Not with judgment. With respect. 3 months passed. Victor officially challenged the trust. Raymond crushed the case with medical evaluations and legal records. The court immediately signaled Victor had almost no chance. Meanwhile, his inheritance froze. Legal fees drained him fast. His wife moved out. Tyler failed every work benchmark and lost his fake job. Later, he joined an electrician apprenticeship. My mother burned through most of her inheritance in only a few months. Debt. Renovations. Appearances. Always appearances. Nora pitched promptly to Maggie. The product was actually good. After several revisions, Westbrook Properties signed a 6-month pilot contract worth $120,000. Not charity. Business. And me? I worked every day. I asked questions. Listened. Learned. I enrolled in an online operations program. Not because I wanted approval. Because I wanted to grow. 4 months later, my mother asked to meet. Not demanded. Asked. We sat in a small diner off Route 37. She looked older. Tired. I'm broke, she admitted. I stayed quiet. The divorce cost more than I told people. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. I wasn't going to tell you. Why tell me now? Because I don't have anyone else. The diner stayed noisy around us. Finally she looked down. I was wrong. Not I'm sorry. Just wrong. You called me your biggest disappointment, I reminded her. She closed her eyes. I know. I took a breath. I don't need apologies. I need boundaries. Stop telling people I'm your failure. She nodded once. Then she stood up. At the door, she turned back. Your grandfather was right about you. Then she left. It wasn't healing. But it was something. 5 months after the will reading, Maggie dropped a folder on my desk. Inside were plans for affordable housing in Holden, my hometown. Grandpa's handwriting covered the front page. This is where we started. We should give something back. Victor killed the project, Maggie explained. Said profits were too small. I looked at the plans. 36 affordable apartments. Families who needed help. Approve it, I said immediately. Maggie almost smiled. Construction started the next week. We named it Harold's Corner. One Saturday, I walked the construction site with Pete, a foreman who'd worked for Grandpa for 22 years. Your grandfather visited every project personally, Pete said. What did he look for? I asked. Pete grinned. Everything. 6 months after the will reading, Victor called again. This time his voice sounded smaller. I dropped the lawsuit, he admitted. I know. My lawyer said there's no way to win. Silence filled the line. Then he spoke again. Is there still a place for me at the company? I leaned back in my chair. You have experience, I said carefully. But you go through the same hiring process as everyone else. No special treatment. No executive title. And the fake expense reports get addressed formally. Another long silence. Finally, he sighed. I understand. Then his voice cracked. Your grandfather wasn't confused, Thea. I just didn't want him to see me clearly. That might have been the most honest thing Victor ever said. 1 year later, Thanksgiving returned. This time at Grandpa Harold's house. Technically my house now. But I still couldn't call it that. I kept everything the same. The oak dining table. The bookshelves. The carpet Grandpa chose because he liked walking barefoot on it. His chair stayed empty with yellow flowers resting on the seat. My mother arrived early and helped peel potatoes. For the first time in years, she acted like part of the family instead of the judge of it. She even told people, Thea makes a better turkey than I ever did. Nora and Grant arrived together. PropLink had officially signed a 2-year contract with Westbrook Properties. Victor came with Tyler. Victor had gone through the interview process fairly. He now worked as operations manager. Not COO. Tyler had finished his electrician apprenticeship and bought his own truck. Aunt Lillian sat beside me quietly. Harold's watching, she whispered. I looked around the table. Everything wasn't magically fixed. My mother still struggled to apologize. Victor still carried shame. Nora still looked uncomfortable when people mentioned the envelope. But things were different now. After dinner, I stepped outside alone. The workshop sat behind the house exactly where Grandpa left it. I opened the door. The smell hit me instantly. Sawdust. Oil. Wood. Everything stayed exactly the same. His tools still hung on the wall. Sandpaper sat sorted by grit. The old workbench still carried scratches from 40 years of projects. I sat on Grandpa's stool. The room felt warm even in silence. I'm telling you this story now because the money was never the important part. $38 million sounds huge. But money wasn't the real inheritance. Belief was. Grandpa believed in me when nobody else did. Not because I was special. Because I stayed. I showed up when it mattered. If you're listening right now feeling invisible to the people who should love you most, hear me carefully. Your value is not decided at somebody else's dinner table. It's built quietly. In hard choices. In loyalty. In the moments nobody claps for. After everything happened, I wrote 3 rules for myself and taped them inside my kitchen cabinet. Rule 1. I will never waste energy proving my worth to people who already decided I had none. Rule 2. I will never let my past decide my future. I dropped out of school to help someone I loved. That choice cost me a diploma. But it gave me something bigger. Character. Rule 3. I can love my family without giving them unlimited access to hurt me. Love and boundaries can exist together. Grandpa didn't really leave me $38 million. He left me trust. Real trust. The kind that changes a person forever. I placed my hand on the old workbench. My palm rested perfectly where Grandpa's used to rest. Thank you, Grandpa, I whispered. The workshop light flickered once. Maybe bad wiring. Maybe something else. I smiled anyway. Then I pulled the chain. The light went dark. I stepped outside and walked back toward the house. Warm light glowed through the kitchen window. Inside, I heard laughter. Real laughter. Not cruel. Not fake. Family laughter. And for the first time in a very long time, it finally sounded like home. If this story meant something to you, tell me in the comments. And if your grandfather left you a yellow envelope with only a phone number inside, would you call? Or would you throw it away? Thanks for listening until the end.